Okay, so I'll do a walkthrough for Connected Components Workbench. This is a standard edition. It's the free edition. This is version 13. There it is, version 13. So your main option with this program is when you start it up, if you have a network up and running and you're on the network and the drive is on the network, you can discover the drive. So let's look at that option here. So you click Discover. It's going to use like a light version of RS Links to find your drive. So you'll click on the plus sign in front of the network driver, and you'll see that 238 is the drive that I have. So I'm going to click on that one time and say OK. So it's going to upload a little bit from the drive. This is correct right here. I'm going to go ahead and add this drive to my project. And what that will do is on the project organizer, you'll see it pop up. So let's click on that. And at this point, if I wanted to, I could save this project, give it a name like, let's do that. Let's save it. The default name is Project 10. That's not a really great name, so I'm going to save it as, I'm going to give it a different name. It's going to be, today is November 9, so I'm going to call this the Drive November 09, 2021. Okay. So here's my project, and what I'll do is go ahead and connect with that drive to put it back online. You'll notice that it turns green here when you've connected to it. Okay, if I disconnect from it, it goes kind of gray. And also right here, it kind of grays out as well. So let's connect to the drive. And I've got the green box here, and I've got the green line here. So when I'm connected to the drive, I'm actually live with it. So any changes that I make in the parameter listing will go straight into the drive. So let's say I had a motor, it was a 208 motor. I could type that in. Notice how it turns kind of a yellow color, orange, yellow. That tells me that that's a non-default value. Okay, so anytime I make a change, it's going to turn to that mustard color. Okay. So right now the drive was recently reset to factory, so everything should be defaults. Let's change the overload current. Let's put some numbers in here based on the motor that I have here in the classroom. Just keep going for a little bit, probably 0.79 on that. Acceleration time, we'll change it to 2 seconds, 2 seconds. Minimum frequency, let's do 30 and 60. Start source, you know, you would have a project in mind, so you would know what you want to plug in here. The default is the keypad. Start source 1 is the default, of course. I know we had mentioned before that it's not a very good choice because in order to start and stop the drive, you would have to open the cabinet that it's located in, and that would of course expose you to high voltages. So it's never really a good idea to use the keypad as the starting source. You can leave it, but you almost always want to go off the terminal blocks, which is start source 2. That way you can remotely locate the start stop push buttons. Or a better choice is to use the Ethernet IP connection, start source number 3. Then you can use a laptop or a PLC connection to control the drive, right? But these, of course, are the default settings. You have a lot of other settings in here. Of course, on and on it goes. If you are going to wire something to the terminal block, you want to set these parameters correctly. This is the default is a 2-wire control. We generally like a 3-wire, so a 3-wire start and a 3-wire direction. So it's important that you get those 2 parameters correct if you're going to use the external controls. But there are so many more, and of course you'd want to look at your user manual for that to familiarize yourself with that. So on and on it goes, and of course, you know, depending on your project, you'll have to focus on certain areas. So these are live changes. They've already been made to the drive right now. I could start it. Let me reach over and press start. And it's at 30 hertz right now. I know that because I'm looking at it, but I can also see it right here. So if I press stop, it's going to ramp down. So up, and let's go up to 60 and down to 30. So that's a success right there. It's working like it should. No problems that I can see on it. You can run the wizard. You know, we like the wizard. There is a couple of problems with the wizard, though. One is that since I've already configured the minimum frequency, I'm pretty sure when I press start here, it's going to give me a fault. But of course I have to stop it. Let me stop it first. This fault. Okay, so it's not a real problem. That's the minimum frequency, drive parameter 43. So in order to use the wizard, I have to clear that parameter. So let's do that. Let's go back to 0. And of course, the wizard is a quick way to get started. It's like the quick start. I would just click next. Here I can reset parameters. I don't really want to because I just went through that. But typically you do want to reset. Better than just using these resets is the PO53 parameter, which is like a hard reset. So when you set it equal to 2 and press enter, it is going to clear everything out of the drive. So if you have a backup, printed backup, or a file that shows you the parameters, you can reset it back to factory and then restore the drive. A lot of times people will get in there if they can and they'll start changing parameters that they shouldn't change and mess up the whole operation of the drive. So if you have a backup copy of the settings, you could download it through connected components, or you could wipe the drive and just manually enter those parameters back in. So I'm going to skip this. I don't want to do that. Skip the language. This defines how the motor is going to operate. SVC is sensorless vector control, so I'm going to leave that alone. My max voltage should be 208 though. Just to set that correctly. Here's the data that I just entered through connected components, so it is in there right now. My feedback, I have none. I have no braking resistors. So here's where I can actually control the drive through the wizard. And I would rather not, because I don't want to change the way the drive talks across the Ethernet. So if I say yes on this, well, I guess I may as well go ahead and do it. It's going to say, do I want to change the speed reference to 15? 15 is the Ethernet. So if I say yes on that, I will have to double check on the way out to make sure that it's going back to the, in this case, the drive pot. So let's just say yes. Okay. Not going to hurt it. So what I'll do is press stop, then I'll press start. I can type in like 40 right there, 40 hertz, and you'll see it speed up, or 50 hertz, or 49. Whatever I tell it to do, it will go there. If I put 0, it will ramp down to 0 because I changed my minimum frequency back to 0 for the wizard. Okay, so normally it'd be maybe 20 or 30 or so. So I'll stop that. Then I'll hold down the jog button. You'll see that it jogs correctly. If the direction of rotation is okay, you'll say yes on that. Okay. Let's skip one. So here, I don't have a motor connected to my drive right now, but if I did, I would definitely want to do a rotational tune on it right here. It will make the motor spin, and you can, the drive will learn how the motor operates. Okay. I'm going to skip that. Min max, let's go to 30 on the min. I'm going to disable reverse operation. I don't want it to go backwards. 2 and 2, let's change that to 5 and 5, the acceleration time. And here we are. See, speed reference 1 is now currently Ethernet IP because I enabled the control bar to run the drive through the screen. And that's kind of a problem. And the reason is that as soon as I click on this drop-down arrow, a lot of times it crashes. So I'm hesitant to do that, but I just want to tell you what the problem is if it does crash. Speed reference 3 is Ethernet IP, so let's give it a try, of course. Okay, so there is the problem. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to keep doing that. What I will do is just go back in here and manually adjust that. See how it's turned to Ethernet. So I'm going to put that to keypad. And I'm going to put this one back to drive pod. Okay. So that's just something that it seems to happen, and I don't have a way to fix it. So go back to the wizard. And I'm going to just click my way through this. I'm just going to look at the settings real quick. Make sure nothing's changed. 0 went away, so let's put a 30. Let's disable that. Let's put a 5 and a 5. Next. Okay, drive pot. That crashed again. Well, let's just look at the parameters. Okay. So, keypad, terminal block, Ethernet, and the rest of these, I would have gotten to them if it hadn't crashed on me. And I probably could skip through that section. Let's just try skipping through it. I'm going to skip, get to where I want to be. Let's go back and check the minimums. It didn't take the minimums. Let's change these parameters. I'm going to skip that. It crashed again. Well, okay, it's software, and software has problems, so it's okay. Well, except that it's going to lock up the computer. So, okay. Let's try that one more time. What I would like to do is, it should have taken most of those parameters. I'm just going to go straight to the parameter list and see if I can verify the settings that I have in the drive right now. So let's discover it once again. Okay. So I always say that it's not a bad thing when things don't work correctly because it's a learning experience. And I have noticed a consistent problem with the wizard. So the only thing I like to use the wizard for is for the auto tune, the rotational tune. Everything else I can set manually. So, it's handy, but a little bit of a hassle sometimes. So it took those parameters. Let's keep going. It took those. Okay. I didn't have much else that I was concerned about. It's got the IP address. It's going to boot off of parameters, which is important there. If I set this to boot P, it will disappear from the network because it'll lose its, it won't boot to the IP address that I set in. So don't do that. I don't have a default gateway set up because I'm not jumping out across the router or anything. And the rest of this I don't need to change. So, it's, as far as I'm concerned, this drive is set up just fine. So I could just close this. So let's open, I don't want to do that. Let's discover it one more time. What I want to do is get a snapshot of what's in it right now. sort of locked up. Let's give it a second to come back. Okay. So let's see if it's there. Okay, there it is. I'm going to bring it into the project, add to the project, then I'm going to save it. I'm going to do a save as, and I would like it to be I'd like it to be that name I used before, Drive November 9th, 2021. I'm going to put a B after it because it's like the second try. I'm going to save that. Okay. So if I click on Open Existing, I can see here is the configuration file. So the nice thing about connected components is that as I set up my drives, I can have a copy of their configuration. So if I ever have to replace a drive, all I have to do is open that drive file and just download to the drive. So you probably noticed over here, one more time, right here, you can download. So you could download configuration into a fresh drive once you give it an IP address. Okay. In worst case, you can do the IP through the keypad if you don't want to have boot P running or you don't have boot P. So that none of it's a problem, right? So that's basically how you get started. The other way to do this is, let's close this. I could click on New, and if I do that, it's going to ask me, what do I want to do? And I'll tell it, I want to do a drive, I want to do a 525, or whichever one you've got, and I'll just say select. And what I've got now is a generic, a kind of a generic 525. Okay, so I'll just say OK on that, and here it is, and it's all back to factory. All the standard factory settings are there, and yeah, these are standard settings. Depending on the type of drive, I might have, like I have embedded Ethernet on the EENET drive. If I don't, if I have a COM card, I'll just tell it add COM card. So basically, if I'm doing it this way, I'm building my drive parameters, or at least the drive definition. So I would have to know a lot about the drive to get it set up correctly here. The other way is so much easier because if you have a real drive in front of you, you can just import all the parameters and go from there. But you can do it this way. So you can create a drive configuration file and have it ready to download into a drive. You can even, of course, you can plug in your IP addresses if you wanted to create one from scratch right here. So you would just configure whatever it's going to be, 192.168, 5.1, 5.2, whatever it's going to be. So two ways you can go here. Okay, well that's enough on this program. If you're saving to a flash drive, you want to do a save as. If you're saving to the hard drive, just a save will work. Only problem with save as is that you have to have your flash drive to get your program back, your project file. So like in a classroom environment, it's a good idea to do a save as so you can take your files with you. But generally it's not a great idea because if you lose your flash drive, you lost all your work. So maybe use the flash drive as a backup, copy that folder onto the flash drive and take it with you and put it in your pocket somewhere. So there we go. That's the basics on how connected components. Lots of buttons I stay away from because you don't need to know about all these things right away. Basically, you use this tool to configure drives or backup drives.